the theatre kids are their own clique. They are their own really, really passionate and devoted group who have
Yep.
generally gotten into it since, like late primary school. They probably got into it around about the same time they got into puberty. And it just comes upon you one day you wake up and there are cast recordings all over the bed. Where did these come from?
Welcome to the Vinyl Monologues. This is the last episode in this season, but of course you're subscribing, so you'll know when the next one's coming, which is very soon. Peter J. Casey is the co-host of the original Vinyl Monologues, which sounds confusing, but it's something that you might be able to find on streaming services that we did together that was fabulous and very, very fun. And I love the name so much that I will use it forever. And he is an absolute music theatre nerd, which would normally be the worst possible marriage to my post-punk obsession, but he explains it and just embodies it so beautifully. He is such a cool, amazing guy, and I love hanging out with him, and I think you will too. So, yeah, I think you'll enjoy this episode a lot. And first up, the Vinyl Monologue, which, look, that's the other thing. I would always try to convert Peter J to my music. I don't know that I did a very good job. It was probably more the other way around. But, yeah, I think you'll enjoy this one too. So, yeah, stick around. Okay, so this version of the Vinyl Monologue is going to be a classic Cure record. This is Disintegration, released in 1989, I think, when I was in year 5. And the only reason I knew this, again, I was exposed to some pretty cool music, like both from my parents at a young age, but, you know, this family member who shall not be named. But no, this I discovered myself because the funny thing about Disintegration is it's actually darker than the stuff they'd released before. So if you think about songs like Love Cats and, you know, that was really poppy and really, made it palatable for everybody and everybody loved that. But apparently Robert Smith was turning 30, which, sorry, my next birthday is 50. So boo-hoo, Robert turning 30. And he was very angry about, and there was a lot of existential angst about that. And he thought that his peers had maybe written, you know, much greater works than he had by that age. So he was a bit shitty. And I don't know, there was some issues with the band. You've got Lol Tolhurst, who was the keyboardist, who was apparently very, was struggling with alcoholism. So they got the dude from the Psychedelic Furs, which, you know, you could, you can't do better than that. That was pretty cool. But yeah, it was interesting because he was really trying to go back to their early roots, like albums like Pornography. So he wrote, it's an interesting bunch of songs because even he says, like, you've got something like Love Song, which people would probably be very familiar with that. Apparently he wrote that as a wedding present to his wife, Mary Poole, which is super sexy, guys. Like, if you, if you want to get laid, write her a good song. But the segue was that Lullaby was still, it was still a hit. And I remember, okay, we're old, but Smash Hits magazine, right? And this is the thing, like, fuck your Shazams and your Googles, right? We had to work hard to know lyrics for songs, right? So there were many mondegreens, which you should look that up, but that's basically the term for when you stuff up a lyric, right? Like thinking, excuse me, while I kiss this guy for Purple Haze. We just did that because we honestly had to make it up. You had to rewind it. You didn't know. With this one, Lullaby was one of there was only 4 every week or month of Smash Hits magazine. It was the lyrics were on there. I remember memorizing them, so I knew all the words. And I love the film clip too, because even though I have intense arachnophobia, so that's not great because it's all about a spider eating you alive. There was this black brass bed that I always that's my dream bed, and I still haven't found it. So if a brass bed sort of sponsor wants to come on board and kind of model themselves on the Lullaby film clip and deliver that, that's great. It is a beautiful record, and Love Song's probably the one that sounds a little fun and jangly and sweet. And I think the thing about that whole goth mindset and image is that you kind of really love the dark image, and you don't want to smile, you don't want to be fun and happy and whatever. So Love Song was a real departure for him in that It's a pretty dark record, but he really just bared all, and it's a very simple song. The lyrics aren't very complicated, but that kind of makes it darker in a way to me sometimes when it's not trying too hard. And then Prayers for Rain is another amazing song on this record. But Fascination Street, I think, is probably my favourite. And the other cool fact about this is that I saw them at the Royal Theatre in Canberra. Weirdly, I don't know if like airfares were cheaper, I don't know what was going on, but in the 90s we got some cool bands in Canberra. And yeah, I saw them at the Royal Theatre and they played for 3 hours, which was pretty impressive. I annoyingly went with someone who wasn't as keen. That's not a good thing. And I know that was a lesson for me. Don't go with people who don't appreciate it, or like find a little gang of people that are just there on the night. I often do that. But yeah, they played an hour and a half of old songs, an hour and a half of new songs. And then afterwards, I kind of, I had my Three Imaginary Boys vinyl, and I kind of went to the backstage door and they came out, and Robert Smith came out and was very surly, and probably just tired after a 3-hour gig, whatever. But I just like went to like kiss him on the cheek, and then I accidentally kissed him on the neck. It was just one of those awkward kind of moments in life. But he and the band signed my Three Imaginary Boys record, so that was very, very cool. And then they recently played the entirety of Disintegration in full at the Opera House, which that's another like well-kept secret. They now have these really contemporary gigs in what has normally been deemed as a really highbrow space. So that's been really, really cool. I've seen some I've seen Pixies, seen New Order, seen some great bands there. And yeah, we were sort of like side of stage almost, if you've ever been there, for them playing this record in full. And it was magic. Like I have goosebumps thinking about it. It was so fucking cool hearing this record live. And yeah, I've made many friends very envious that I got a ticket to that. It was just because someone was very kind to me. There was a ballot. It was a whole thing. So anyway, yeah, it's my favourite Cure record. I think after Wish, I wasn't quite sure what they did. Their recent record is a return to form with no hits. It's just, yeah, it's very, very cool. But yeah, Disintegration by The Cure. Check it out. Welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Monologues, and this is an interesting one today because my guest is a former co-host of what used to be the Vinyl Monologues. Peter J. Casey, welcome.
Hi, it's Tatjana. It's good to be back.
Exactly, right? The band's back together. I love it. After the incident. It's okay. It's okay. Well, look, let's just be incredibly self-indulgent. When have we not been? Explain to people what was our initial concept for the Vinyl Monologues?
So in the olden days of 2009, I think it was, you came to me and said, let's do a segment on the radio where I have to listen to classic albums that I missed out on because I'm too young. And even though the age difference between us isn't massive, it's enough that if I grew up on an album in the 80s that I thought was an absolute like barn burner of an album, you might not have grown up on it, or you might have only heard it in dribs and drabs. So we came up with this system where you had to listen to a particular album all the way through, and you weren't allowed to do anything else while you were listening to it. So it was very much like you were stuck in the decade I came from. So you couldn't be on your phone, you couldn't be on your laptop, you couldn't be checking the weather. You had to just put your headphones on or commandeer the room where the album was playing and listen to it all the way through. Side one, then side two, no pauses, and then come back to us with your thoughts. And this sounds like something I drove, but it was actually your idea. And we tried as much as possible to avoid real overly done albums and to look instead at maybe artists who hadn't gotten a fair shake. And we also tried to make sure that it was like a good combination of stuff that's cool, like Patti Smith doing Horses and Leo Sayer doing Anything.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you unexpectedly liked some things. It was great.
Yes. And we unexpectedly, remember, had Leo Sayer on the bloody show talking about that particular record, which was amazing. And then you turned me on to Patti Smith, which My not so fun fact is on my fridge, I still have fucking Patti Smith tickets, and she cancelled during COVID, and now
Oh,
she's in her
man.
early 70s, and I don't think she'll ever come back. And it was like my bucket list gig. Yeah.
And talk about cool credentials. You can be like amongst other people of your age and go, oh yeah, Horses, of course, Patti Smith album. Yeah, I know it well. Been listening to it for years. But one of the things I thought was most interesting about it was that removal of distraction, because I think some music actually does better. You know how there are some TV shows where they're better with an ad break?
Yeah.
Like when the ad break comes along, you go, oh, I'm going to get some chips. And like the show actually needs it.
Yeah.
And there are some albums that I think if you take a break between the songs, the album actually does better. It's not, especially in the post scene, in like anything over an hour, I think you're probably around about the 45-minute mark going to go, I've heard all the best songs.
Yeah, true, true.
Everything from now on is outtakes you should have left off. And it's no slight on the artist. It's just I think it's the human attention span, the human bladder, how much new music your ear can take in one sitting. And what I loved about it was that you came away with this real set of opinions and appreciation for the second last song on side one. And the not the final song on the album, but the second last song on the album. And I think to this day, those are really hard tracks to nail.
Yeah.
Like, I think most people are pretty good at the opening song. It's going to be your banger. It's going to be your single, whatever genre you're in. But blimey, the fourth song, gee, that's hard to get right.
Well, you know what always makes me laugh is for anyone that doesn't know, and this is probably a boring behind the scenes of radio, but I was your actual producer. So the only person answering the phones on a fucking Sunday was me. But what always made me laugh was so we'd be on together.
Yeah.
And there would be middle-aged white dudes with opinions like that needed to be heard.
For sure.
And we're like, hang on, who does this chick think she is saying that Bat Out of Hell is misogynistic? It is a guide. Like this is, pre-Andrew Tate. Like we need to listen to Meatloaf and his thoughts on women. But no, it was so fun. And I think to our credit, people, when we did the vinyl countdown, which was just so that you could do the do-do-do-do.
It's the final countdown. It was so much fun. We'll get a copyright strike for that.
Never gets old. Again, that might have been part of the incident. I don't know. But, we did that and people were having barbecues to hear what number one was, which was so fun for us. Like, we loved it. Yeah, it was so much fun.
No, I reckon you undid a lot of stereotypes about millennials, particularly white millennial girls, by loving stuff that people didn't think you were going to love and having some solid criticisms of stuff that people thought might be a bit of a slam dunk.
Well, I'm still a Gen Xer, I'll have you know. Thank you. I'm a 78er. How dare you? How dare you? Yeah.
Well, you're
I'm
pretty
like,
close
I'm a late. Yeah. But I hear you. But I take your point. And the immersive thing is really interesting because, like, I only really have ever had that experience since you made me have those experiences with albums that I'd never had before because my kids were really young. And the only thing I've had similar is when I'm driving like a decent trip.
Oh yeah,
and you hear it in the car. Yeah.
And there are albums you cannot wait to skip individual songs. You wish you could, but you got to get up, walk across the room, lift the needle up, put it down again. And I have, and will again. But but it's an interesting thing to hear. Oh, I've got to tell you a nerdy Peter Gabriel story because
always.
Well, I listened to his album when it came out.
So good.
What's that? 86, and I'm 15 going on 16. So I'm the perfect age for that album to come out.
I noticed your shirt was made out of curtains as well. That's interesting.
So I listened to it pretty religiously. And then years later, when it came up on Spotify, I thought, I should listen to that album again. I've not listened. And the tracks were in a different order. And of course, I was righteous. I was like, "In Your Eyes does not belong there. I'm looking this up online." So I looked it up, and of course they did change for the digital release the order of the tracks because they wanted the bass line to enjoy on vinyl the extra space between the grooves that you get when you're at the start of the side. And when you're at the end of the side, the grooves start to compress a bit and you can lose bass register. So it turns out all those years ago when I'd been listening to it on vinyl, I had listened to it in a different track order because they wanted the bass for In Your Eyes to really stick out. And when it came out on CD, they put the order back the way they actually wanted it to be. So I think it's really important if you've lived through an era not to decide that you therefore have the truth. Like, I was there. I listened to Peter Gabriel's album. Doesn't mean you're right. It just means there's two different versions of what happened and you only know one of them.
Oh, I miss your nerdy facts so much. It's so good.
Yeah,
Like
isn't that a good one though?
yeah,
Isn't that a great
yeah,
one?
that's a really good
Yeah,
one. But I would
yeah,
argue it's more important to have them in the order in which they. Because my son makes electronic music, and he
yep,
loves collecting vinyl as well, and is really into the narrative and arc of a record. Like, he appreciates
yeah,
song
yeah.
placement. And so
I
I
can
think
get
that
that.
that's
Yeah,
more important. Yeah, I think it's more important because I'm not a sound nerd. Thank God I have my gorgeous producer Paul, who is. I don't care about that bass like resolution the way I do about how Peter Gabriel wanted it to be ordered. I mean, am I
it's
wrong, Peach?
it's
I don't know.
no, of course not, because it's like when somebody goes to all that trouble to make sure that the frequency range is, and then you play it on the crappiest car speakers in the oldest car. They're like, they're slaving away in the studio to make sure that the 10,000 hertz is, and you're putting some cassette into an old Corolla and like barely capturing a third of what they. So I think you roll your dice. People are going to play it on what they play it on.
Yeah, but I think if I'm still enjoying it with that subpar
Oh,
sound,
yeah.
how great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's legit. Yeah, yeah, and you may find out. I might run into Peter Gabriel and go, "I love how you've got no bass line on In Your Eyes." Yeah, that's a really brave choice for back then.
Oh, man. You know how I'm obsessed with, well, John Cusack and Ione Skye, who, of course, in Say Anything, when
Yeah,
John's
yeah,
holding up the
yeah.
boombox playing
The
In Your
boomer.
Eyes.
Yeah, 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 for
And
sure.
I follow her on Instagram. She's actually releasing a book called Say Everything. See, I feel like if I give her a plug, maybe she'll come on the podcast. Like, is that how it works? I don't
It's
know.
worth a shot. Yeah, I mean, I hear she's an incredibly gracious and generous person. So
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I also
bounds to
hear because
happen.
she's right and because she's married to Ben Lee and they're in Sydney most of the time. So I just feel like it's a natural sort of progression there. So
Yeah, yeah,
good
yeah.
work. Good
Really, we'd be
work.
doing them a favour. Yeah, yeah.
Now, I've got to move on to what's interesting. And I think I spoke with Bernard Zool, music journo, about this. That people, when people are asked, what's your favorite music? And, a lot of people will say, I like everything, but they don't mean that, right?
No, no.
There's definitely things we don't like. And I think I said to him as well, like, when I hear someone say, I like everything, in my head, I'm hearing, I like nothing because you're not committing, like, give me some opinions, give me
Yeah,
some
yeah.
shit. Like, you know what
No.
I mean? Like, I love having like respectful but like passionate debates about music. And the funny thing about you and I going through that process and experiencing albums in your case again, and for me the first time, and discussing them, is you've got quite a different bent when it comes to music and the sort of 90s that you experienced in Canberra, music wise. So I thought we'd go back there. Tell me what young Peter J was enjoying.
Well, I did a course at the then School of Music. It's no longer called that, in jazz studies, and that was because I wanted to work in musical theatre. And there was no course in musical theatre. There's now several courses in contemporary music, and of course, WAPA has a course that is, Australia's go-to course for musical theatre. None of that existed at the time, and I was really frank when I applied for it. I said, look, I want to learn how to play show tunes because, sure, a lot of them are jazz standards, but I actually am really into musical theatre and cabaret. And that was what I wanted to pursue a career in. And then I wound up doing that. Like, I was a pit musician and I was a rehearsal pianist and I was an accompanist for lots of performers in cabaret shows all through the 90s. So before I met you, I was steeped in the absolutely uncoolest, daggiest music that you would never voluntarily listen to. And as game as you were to listen to albums, I never made you listen to the Australian cast recording of Cats, which is far and away the best one. And and I never subjected you to like live recordings of cabaret shows and
No,
things like that.
no, you did not.
We're actually having it's a funny thing. If you'd asked people at the time, is this a good decade for live recordings of cabaret shows? They'd have said, no, it's terrible. Everything's terrible. There's nothing good. Now it actually looks like a golden era. Now it actually looks like a time when a lot of really good artists were releasing really interesting work. and a lot of people were doing interesting performance. Yeah. So that's my go-to genre. That's my top artist on Spotify is original cast. That's who they think everything is being sung by. They're versatile.
But what's funny about you, and we live in different cities now, but we were always good mates, and I'm comfortable saying that everybody thought you were a gay man in a straight body, right? You dress well, you're good to women, you're funny, you're a cool dude, right? Like, I don't know that you came off as someone who classically was into music theatre at the time. Did you find brethren, or were you just out on your own loving this stuff?
Oh, no. I definitely found brethren. And if anybody is a theatre kid who's watching this, they know that the theatre kids are their own clique. They are their own really, really passionate and devoted group who have generally gotten into it since, late primary school. They probably got into it around about the same time they got into puberty. And it just comes upon you. One day you wake up and there are cast recordings all over the bed. Where did these come from? And they are as insular and as devoted and as passionate and as prone to, internal warfare as any other cliquey group. So I always find it fascinating if people who are just so deeply into metal talk about heavy metal, and I just imagine that they're talking about music theatre, and all of the strangeness goes out of it because it's immediately tremendously familiar to me. One of the good things about the Tony Awards in Australia is that they happen around about the same time as the State of Origin. So if you have no interest in or knowledge of rugby league, all you've got to do is decide that everybody's talking about whether that nominee for Best Original Score really deserves it. Was there enough new songs in that score? And that's exactly the same as hearing about whether these defensive. Actually, I can't talk about rugby. That's exactly the same as talking about whether Queensland will win. That's as much.
Oh,
as
look, who knows? Who knows? And like I've said before on this podcast, my partner who's a muso and really into music was the first person who made me understand that synergy between, he's a big AFL fan, and he says, if you've ever been to the MCG, when there's a game, he said the camaraderie and the vibe and just the spectacle of it can be like being at a gig with, because you know what it's like when you're at a gig with everybody, or in your case in the theatre crowd. It's like, this is your religion. This is something that connects you, and is just an essence of being human. We want to feel connected to other people that are into the same things, and that's cool that you found your tribe.
Well, and I think the thing that also makes it similar is that the audience have paid for their tickets and they've come to see the show. And it's Wednesday afternoon and you're not feeling it. And guess what? You just got to do it. So if you're the pit musician, for example, and if you're sitting there and it's your job, as it sometimes is my job to play the jaunty keyboard intro, you've got to play it like it's Saturday night. You've got to play it like you've got a crush on the person in the front row and you're trying to impress them. Because the ticket price is 3 figures easy. And, you got to pretend there's some kid in the audience who's like, oh, why did you drag me to this? And then when that intro kicks in, they're like, no, I'm good. I love this. Don't know what it is. Love it. You need to be that enthused every time you do it. It's not easy to do. If you're in a show that runs 8 times a week, every human being on the planet has at some point gone, oh, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
But the gig is, and I imagine it's like this if you're a touring band and you're megastars and there's a song that the entire room is waiting to hear and you've played it 500 times this year already and you're just not feeling it, but you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to actually bring to it some, and I'm sure you've been to gigs where you think, oh, they didn't really bring it. I love them to death. I'll still go and see them again. But if you do that in music theatre, you're going to get fired. Nobody's that big. Nobody's, maybe,
well, look,
I don't know. Maybe,
tell me what draws you to it, because this is where, and I think we did do a vinyl monologue once that somewhere got lost where you made me listen to West Side Story, the soundtrack, right?
Did I?
You did,
Wow.
and I made you listen to Blue Lines by Massive Attack, and it was a whole thing. But
yes, that's right.
But you need to explain to me, because in a modern sense, I watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, that series with Rachel Bloom on Netflix or whatever, thinking, oh, what a dumb title, this is terrible, and it was amazing. And because the songs, it was so good, and because the songs were so, I'm not averse to shitty TV, but it's just I was blown away by how good it was. It was obviously, there were really strong musical numbers, amazing satire, so beautifully written, and, a lot of pathos and a lot of, wit. And so maybe that was my slight gateway. But tell me, like, what drew you to that medium?
Well, look, it's worth pointing out that there's that variation in musicals in terms of their quality that there is in anything. And it always bothers me in movies when the characters say, we're going to the opera. And I always think, well, what opera are you going to? Like,
Because there's a difference. Yeah.
that's like saying we're going to the movie. Let's turn on the TV and watch the program. Because if you're going to see, Madame Butterfly, I'm not that interested. If you're going to see From the House of the Dead by Janacek, I'm all ears. I love that score. I think it's really fascinating. There's that variation. So there's a bunch of musicals that I don't necessarily like. There's a bunch of musicals and one of the nice things about getting older is that you let other people love them. You
Bless. That's nice.
Yeah, I know. Oh, you enjoyed it? No, you didn't. Let me tell you why.
Yeah,
no,
that's me about the
absolutely
Pixies'
not.
last 5 records. But anyway, let's not
Yeah,
talk
right.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I love the power of it's not for me.
Oh, not passive aggressive, you don't think? Or
No, I don't think so. Like, I think if I'll pick something that's not music, so hopefully people don't get too riled up. Do you know Colleen Hoover? Really, really popular author, one of the biggest selling authors on the planet. It's not for me. What I mean is I'm not the intended reader, and it's not marketed as something I'm supposed to read. I read it out of curiosity. It ends with us. This was my first attempt at a Colleen Hoover novel.
I'm just imagining you buying an overpriced beer at an airport, reading a Colleen Hoover.
Yeah, no, it's happily I was at the library. But at the end of it I went, well, that's not for me. It's very liberating because if someone else passionately loves it, you're free to say to them, well, what did you like about it? Are there things you thought could have been better? And at no point are you invested in whether they love it or not because it's not for you. It's not for you. Plenty of things are for you. This is not for you.
But you know that Kath and Kim episode? You know how Kath speed reads? And she goes, well, yeah, I finished it. I don't agree, but yeah, and it's like the Da Vinci Code or something. And she goes, well, I don't agree. And I'm thinking, I'm going to see you at the end of Colleen Hoover. But that's nicer to say. It's not for me. Yeah.
It's not. Well, have you seen the Saturday Night Live sketch? It's called Wells for Sensitive Boys, and they're advertising.
No.
I mean, just pause this podcast now and go and look at the sketch if you haven't, because
okay, good,
Emma Stone is in it as the mother of this sensitive boy who likes to sit and stare into the well. And he likes to tell the well his secrets. And he's a sensitive kid. He's not into trains and sword fights and all the stuff the other boys are into. And then when one kid says, I don't get it. What? I don't get it. What's he doing? She just turns on him with the righteous fury of a mother and says, that's because it's not for you. Everything is for you and this one thing is for him. And that became a meme for a while because you could insert your own thing that is, And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's not for me and it's not important. So, sorry, to get back to, I don't love all musicals. I'm not a huge fan of Mamma Mia, but I do like ABBA.
I'm still just laughing at the idea of Peter J. Casey on the back of Colleen Hoover's blurb. Like, it's not for me.
It's not for me. And then the next day I get doxxed. And then there's people camping out the front of the house.
Cancelled. It's not because of your Facebook status as 15 years ago. It's just because you wrote it's not.
That's right. Middle-aged white man recognises.
So what I'm hearing, though, as a non-musical person, is that a non-musical theatre person, that you're not just carte blanche go, oh, look, I fucking love them all. You've got standards. And what are those standards?
It's an iceberg. There's 90% of it is shit below the surface, and then there's the 10% I love. I love the stuff that's like a little more musically complex. So, I'm a big fan of Stephen Sondheim's music, and I'll listen to Sunday in the Park with George and Sweeney Todd any day, anytime. Let's do this. But I also like other composers that work in that vein, and some of them are from as long ago as the 1930s. Love a Gershwin tune, love Frank Lesser's music, particularly shows like The Most Happy Fella. So these are shows that don't get revived. These are shows that don't get turned into movies, although Sweeney Todd did. And these are shows that when you're with other lovers of musical scores, you kind of see each other across the room and do the upwards nod. Like if you're a big fan of Sunday in the Park with George and someone else is in the audience at Mamma Mia and the two of you are not having a good time, you probably look over at each other and go, So we're going to colour and light after this. Yeah. We're going to share headphones. It's going to be sick.
It's pretty sexy.
So, yeah.
But okay,
yeah.
so Sondheim, right? Is that like saying I'm a Scorsese fan? Like, is he just considered like a real arbiter of the genre? Like, and do you like everything he does because it's Sondheim? Or do you know what I mean? Like, is he that sort of big?
It could be like saying you're a Scorsese fan if you indiscriminately love every single thing that ever came out of his that he ever produced.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even the most ardent Scorsese fan would admit that some stuff's patchy, some stuff's brilliant, and some stuff's just consistently great. Yeah. So I suppose it's like that. I'm trying to think of what the musical equivalent might be. It might, like in terms of like pop or rock music, it might be like if you were like an Elvis Costello fan and like you recognize the quality of the stuff that you think is really good, but you also have some favorites that the critics didn't care for, and you'll defend them to the death. Yeah, maybe that's a bad example. Maybe there's a better one. I don't know. Certainly, I've lived long enough to see him go from, this is really interesting, when I started out playing Sondheim tunes for cabaret performers, that was like, well, we should, but the audience won't like it.
Yeah.
And then that went from, oh, are you doing this tune? That's my favorite Sondheim tune. Makes me cry. It's so beautiful.
Aww.
Went from all Sondheim, 24 hours Sondheim, all day, every day, Sondheim. And it was this really weird transition from like niche and forbidding to easy choice, pandering to the audience. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think. Like I say, though, I was like Pixies fan, so big, as you know, I've got their, logo tattooed on my arm.
Yeah,
like I thought
yeah.
their discography was complete.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll never see them live because they'd broken up. And,
Yeah.
I was like, but I'm happy with this. And then they reformed and Kim Deal was still part of it. They played the old shit. Great. And now he's like, Black Francis has fired umpteen bass players, and the latest records are just like, I mean, I will never get him on the podcast as a result of this now, but it's just like his backing band, like they're his wrecking crew who you schooled me on. And it's just, I just want them to play the old shit. Like it's just, so I had this absolute perfect kind of, view of this band that I had etched into my skin. And now I'm like, oh, even though I'm seeing them again soon for the 7th time. So I'm a massive fan, but it's just, yeah, I like the old stuff,
And is it because you can't ever be the old Tatjana? You can't ever be in that era. You can't ever encounter it for the first time. Like, I'm actually really curious about this. Like, I wonder if that's the situation. I've always said about Cats, for example, just to pick another, divisive musical.
Yeah.
I've always said that I was lucky enough to see it in 1986 when I was 16.
Yes.
And that was the right time to see Cats in 1986, but also be 16. I think it was before I heard So by Peter Gabriel. I don't know. After that, I wouldn't have liked Cats as much. And so when I hear, and I think it's a perfectly legitimate question for anyone young now to say, what is up with this Cats show? Why are they running around in lycra and pretending? It's weird. It's like furries with tunes. I don't get it. How did this ever run for decades? And my answer is usually, well, it was 1986 and I was 16 and it made sense then. Yeah. Stuff should date.
Yeah, and I've discussed this with other guests that, there are all these studies about the music that you listen to in your formative years stays with you. I like to buck that trend in that I love new music and I think, I'm willing to grow with artists and like, what are they doing now? Like Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth is solo, and she's in her 70s, does the most fucking abstract, subversive, cool fucking sounds ever.
Yeah,
like she's amazing, totally into it. But like, I don't know. I do think Pixies, definitely were just of an era for me. I listened to them when I was about 11 until I was about 14, 15 were like the really like strong Pixies years for me when they were releasing those records. And look, yeah, I just don't think anything, as you say, can match that time and the way that I absorbed their sound and nothing they've done since. And I think you and I have talked about this before, but Kim Deal, who was the original bassist for Pixies.
Yep, I'm a fan. Yep.
She's awesome, right? And she said that thing that makes it the hair on the back of your neck stand up and the goosebumps is an eargasm, right? So that thing.
Yeah, okay.
And I think you and I have talked about this where I have, as a music journo, always tried to articulate what the fuck that is. And I think you were
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
music theatre, you try to recreate that. Tell me more about that.
Well, the other thing about it is that it's context and its build up. Like I think one of the difficulties in having an eargasm today is that there isn't enough foreplay. Like there isn't enough there's not enough dinner, there's not enough dancing, and there's not enough holding hands, there's not enough compliments. I think, like if you're just doing tracks and they're all 3 to 4 minutes long and they're all roughly the same, like let's talk about, say, Spotify top 40 worldwide. And it's
Oh
all kind of
God.
like
Let's not, but
it's
sure,
all
I know what
kind
you
of
mean.
well, if it's all sort of EDM flavored pop music with occasional steal from hip hop and tinny sort of squeaky vocals. If ever you experience an eargasm from that, great. I'm really, really
Awesome.
happy
But
for
you're
you.
probably faking it, and that's an issue. But yes, I know what you mean.
Well, I don't know, but the next track will do the same thing, and the next track will do the same thing, and
Yeah.
it's a very difficult thing, I think, to do what I love in a great score, and a great film score will do this, and a great opera will do this, and a great musical theatre score will do this, and a great cabaret show will do this too. Is you'll just get seduced into it. There'll be like the charming intro, and then there'll be like the it doesn't seem like much, but it's really going to pay off later. And then there's the, oh, look over there. And then there's the, I'll tell you a story. And again, you think the story doesn't mean much, but it's going to pay off later. And then when you least expect it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And it's great. And it's a really, really powerful thing. And for different audience members, it happens at different times. I mean, the Wicked movie's about to open as you and I are speaking. For a lot of kids who grew up with Wicked, Act One finale, Defying Gravity, that's an eargasm. That for them is absolutely a moment where their hair stood up on the back of their neck and they didn't. Like, I always think a great musical, you don't want to leave your seat at interval. So you're allowed to go out to the bar and queue up for some overpriced wine, and you don't want to.
But can I ask you, well, when you hear that, when you feel that with a musical, right? So there's a lot of conjecture about the idea of covers when it comes to just songs in general, right? Or tributes or
Yeah, for
whatever,
sure. Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
a lot of the time I've had that eargasm, and I think I've spoken about it before. There's this particular, because Black Francis can't sing classically. He just sort of wails, and I
Yeah.
love it and whatever. But there's this note that he reaches when he says in the song Gouge Away on Doolittle, when he says, been rubbing a bad charm with holy fingers. And there's just this bit, and he can't recreate it. He just did it once in the studio. I've heard him do it a million times. It's always good, but I can't ever hear that
Right,
bit
but it's
again.
not- yeah,
it's not the
okay.
bit. And I wonder, so for you, right, obviously the nature of musicals is that people are recreating them over and over again in like tiny
Yeah,
little
yeah.
community theatres and Broadway. And so how does that sort of translate for you?
Well, when you write the stuff, when you actually I am one of, there's maybe 50 people in Australia at any given moment who are seriously trying to write a musical. I think I might be under, no, I reckon I'm about right. And the lineup changes. People get, disillusioned and move off to other things, and people who haven't found it yet kind of get into it. A lot of people who are kind of hobbyists and around the edges, but in terms of people who are actually trying to knuckle down and write something that could go on one day, yeah, let's be generous, 50 to 100 at any given time. All of us are trying to write something where you can do what you just described 8 times a week.
Wow.
I know. So you're trying to be really spontaneous. You're trying to be really, as actors would say, in the moment. But it's also calculated. You're also aware of how this note needs to sound in order to produce the effect that you're hoping for. And the singer's aware of it too. And they'll come in and they'll say, I might not fully belt that note tonight. I might just mix it a bit. And the musical director will go, oh, sweetie, nobody will notice. Just get up there and do your thing. I think that, behind the scenes, there's probably a fair bit of artifice, a fair bit of craft involved. But ideally, for the audience member on the night, in the room, it's magic.
They hear that.
That was unique. That will never happen again in quite the same way. That was a one-time thing. And then you might, as you've done with the Pixies, you might go back and see a musical if you've got the money, or if you know someone in the cast and they get comps, you might go back and see it 7 or 8 times. And it's a wonderful thing to see a different performer in the role find different stuff in the song.
Okay.
And if I am, sometimes I get to be the songwriter in that circumstance. And it's a wonderful thing to hear people find stuff that you knew you put in there, but the other performer wasn't as interested in it, but this one is. And
So,
this from listening to, like, let's talk about Leonard Cohen's song Hallelujah, just to pick a song that everybody
oh
knows and that
yeah, no, that's a good
yeah,
example.
a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people have covered it. Yeah. One singer will do one thing with it and you'll go, oh, and then another singer will do another thing with it and you'll go, oh, interesting.
Not for me.
There'll be
Yeah,
a,
it's not for me. Yeah, yeah.
there'll be a singer with a powerful voice like Katie Lang or like any Wainwright, Rufus particularly. But then there'll be Leonard Cohen himself, who's not a big voice, not a big belting kind of sound. And each of them will do stuff with the material, but it's the same song. Like the song isn't changed at all. It's still Hallelujah. It always will be. And I love that. I love that about good material. Talking about covers, I love material that thrives when it gets somebody looking at it from a different angle or trying different things with it. That's to me great songwriting. And sometimes it's not a complicated song at all. Sometimes it's a really simple piece of writing, but you just get artists to tinker with it and to bring their own perspective and their own background and their own priorities to it. And suddenly it's like it's a different song. Yeah, I love that.
Well, but is that another thing that draws you to this genre too? Because the thing is, like,
Yeah.
I look at, like I referenced Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or High School Musical, or I'm only, cherry picking like the very sort of commercialized, like things that people are consuming with music theatre that are very like well put together and obviously like recorded. And do you love the immediacy, and is this why Cabaret, I'd love to talk about that, is something that you love, just that sort of intimacy with the audience and the fact that on any given night it can change depending on how you feel? And is that what draws you
Yeah,
to
for
it as well?
sure. Yeah, the immediacy of Cabaret is what draws me to it because a musical takes a long time to write, takes a long time to rehearse, takes a lot of resources to stage. It's a big lumbering thing. Even a small musical, even a musical with maybe a cast of 5 and a three-piece band, still a lot of moving parts. But if a cabaret venue is permanently set up with a curtain like you have behind you right now, and a grand piano and a stage, and just the singer and the pianist come out, and boom, you're on. And they will have rehearsed, definitely, and the singer especially will really know that material. But it's a lightweight, portable, much more mobile thing. And yeah, if something happened that day and you want to incorporate it into the song, you don't have to coordinate with lighting and sound and wigs and costume and the orchestra. You can just do it. You can just do it. And that I love about it. I love that particularly. I also love the freedom that Cabaret has, and it goes through these phases where you can incorporate material nobody was expecting from a place nobody thought you would even be listening, and then you can move on and do something else entirely. So there's lots of cabaret artists and it's become a cliche that you will do a pop song that nobody thought had any depth to it, but you do it in a cabaret setting and you reveal this depth that it has. That's in fact now so overdone that people don't do it anymore. But I'll never forget seeing a performer, and this was many years ago, but I still think it's a great trick. She was a classically trained soprano and she did the Woody Woodpecker theme. Do you remember the da-da-da-da,
Yeah, yeah.
da-da-da-da? It's the Woody Woodpecker show, except she did it, harkening back to being seduced. She did it like it was a sexual experience. So and she did a cigarette at the end. So she did, and she kept going higher and higher. And then she did like, it's the Woody Woodpecker show. It was great. It was really, really good because the audience they're all the right age to know that. So I love the idea of people who are now perhaps they've grown up on the Pokemon theme or they've grown up on something that at the time is not considered, anything that you would pay money to see someone sing live on stage.
No.
And then to actually do it is for the audience, the reason you came out tonight. So Cabaret's sort of like the cool cousin from out of town who's just got a different way about her and does things differently. And you're like, damn, every time she visits, I'm like, I got to change my life. I got to do things different.
Oh yeah, I want to borrow her leather jacket and maybe I'll be a different person. Yeah.
Exactly. And when the art form's healthy, and this ties back to what you were saying earlier about you were talking about Bat Out of Hell being misogynist, which, spoiler alert, it is. I always want to stand outside with a sign when people are complaining about changes to shows and say with a sign that says, it should date. If it doesn't, the art form's dead. stuff should date.
Yeah, yeah,
Things that are 20 years old should sound 20 years old. There should be things in them where you go,
yeah.
or just, do you remember that drum patch? How addicted were we to that? We were all using it. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that bothers me about musicals that run for 20 years is they're not saying anything. Because if they were saying anything, they wouldn't run for 20 years.
They wouldn't be able to. Actually, this is leading me to something I've been dying to ask you that I don't think I've really covered in depth on the podcast. So my radio show normally is I have on a Saturday on 2CC, there's a shameless plug. I do a tech segment with a guy that we always banter about his love of AI and how I think it's like, Armageddon, our dystopian future. Fuck that. Like, I want AI to take the drudgery, like help disabled people and help
Hell yes.
anybody that needs
Yeah.
the shitty things doing.
Yeah.
But I love Nick Cave's take on it that like if I walk into a fucking gallery or I listen to a song, I want someone to have sweated and cried and like felt that art that I'm consuming. And the idea that it's just punched into Chat GPT and like, I mean, I guess musicals are ripe for that kind of, or that genre, I should say, ripe for Chat GPT being used. How do you feel about that?
I think that if your model is based on trawling the past and then using that to manufacture something in the present, you're doomed to mediocrity at best.
Yes.
It's
oh my God, so good. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things to survey an audience is, what have you never seen before that if you saw, you'd love it? By definition, that is a really difficult question to answer. And likewise, if you went to fans of the Pixies and if you said to them, what would you love to be on their next album that they've never done before, but even though they've never done it before, when you heard it, you'd loved it. Most fans would go, oh, I don't know, that's not my job. That's their job.
Yeah.
They're the artists here. So I think it's really, really dangerous to manufacture without innovation based on models of the past, when what you should be doing, I think, is risking, is surprising, is attempting things that are new and relishing failure because it means you tried something different. Not cynical failure, not failure of the well, we're going to have Spider-Man,
human failure,
and we're going to have Christmas. Just good old, die with your boots on. You gave it a shot and the audience didn't dig it. Doesn't matter. Moving on. I think that there will be, there already are, there are AI models you can use to sing on your demos. A little bit like Vocaloids, but without the charm. You can produce these voices that will sing your demo for you, which is great if all you want to do is sound the same as everyone else. And lots of young writers do. I mean, that's a stage we all go through, is I want to sound like that. And the stage we need to get to is, I know how to sound like that. I want to sound like me. And then the next stage to get to, if you're lucky enough, is I want to sound like no one's ever sounded before.
And actually what you were saying about the potential for cancel culture, right? Which is bullshit. I know you and I are very progressive thinkers, but like, cancel culture.
Yeah, and like all progressive thinkers, we have no flaws. Yeah,
of course. That's right. But no, I do think like, but I love the idea of some, like, we all say it, like the Facebook statuses, all the shit, like some of the shit I said when I was a teen was dreadfully like tone deaf, and but that's because I was that age. Like,
can I sing you a lyric I wrote when I was in year 8?
Of course.
Only my son Elliot has heard this lyric before because it is so cringily embarrassing.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. Please.
I saw these kids on television and they were learning martial arts. God, I'm blushing just remembering this.
Oh God, yes.
I thought, why are we glamorizing violence? Because I was 15 and I knew everything. And I physically wrote with a pen, Tatjana, and I gave it a tune. See the violent children. What do they grow up to be? Violent men and women living their lives violently.
That's so
and I was
good,
like,
though. But what's the issue there? Are you just saying you're not respecting an ancient art form? Like, what's the problem?
Well, and I was like, underline that shit. I said it. It's out there now. It's done.
Living their lives violently. Fuck yes. How did you not tell me
And
this before? You've been sleeping on that fact.
well, you got to say things up if a friendship's going to last for a long
Oh,
time.
yeah, no, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true.
I thought I'd said something really profound, and then later
Yeah.
on, probably I would have realised I said something incredibly um, obvious and empty and bereft of. And then years later, I would say to myself, I could never write a 15-year-old lyric as good as that one. If I had a
Oh,
character
no,
who
it
was
was
15
beautiful.
and they really felt shit and they wanted to write a song, I would struggle to write something as good
But I feel like,
as
you know what
that.
I think that deserves? Like the Zip Remedy on Degrassi. Maybe they sort
Yeah,
of could have
absolutely.
adopted that. Like I feel
Yeah,
because all they had was
sure.
everybody wants something they'll never give up. Da-na-na-na-na-na. The Degrassi sensation, the one and only. What does it go? Oh, Zip Remedy. Anyway, like they had nothing. Like so, I just feel like your
Yeah, that
martial arts, fucking, you're very like deep
social
and
commentary.
yeah. Oh, the social commentary. I mean, it's just they're living violent lives, Peter J. It's real.
They're living violent lives. And
Living violent
there's the
lives.
leap, though. The leap that you have to make is, what did I write yesterday that in 40 years will sound as
Oh
cringy?
yeah, and look,
And
AI
could
has
I
got
not?
none of that.
Could I make?
Yeah.
Could I try not to? Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, look, yeah, I just this is when I realize I just have to call you
Oh,
afterwards so we can just laugh randomly. But something I wanted to ask you, which is now serious, and I don't know how I'm going to ask this serious question. So
yes.
I think I can speak.
And now
Yeah,
and
sorry,
now
you
to
go.
something serious.
And
Now
now
to
to
something
something serious.
serious. Do that.
Now a word from our
Yeah, do that.
sponsors. Yeah, I was just going to say that I reckon I can easily say that your most profoundly rad achievement is your two beautiful sons, right?
Oh,
And
look, I don't take much credit, but yes.
yeah, like that you and your beautiful wife have raised these two beautiful boys. And the thing is, like, I don't think it's very common for men to have the sort of, I don't know, gap in their careers or, missed opportunities or anything like that. But you were always very sort of open and honest that, you know what, like maybe if it wasn't for the kids, you might have gone and done bigger and better because, I know I'm gassing you up,
Look,
but you are a very talented
no, no,
performer
no,
and
thank you.
composer. But you are. And it's like, but I just find it interesting that normally women are the ones who still in 2024 are being told, well, if you just didn't have the kids or whatever, you can't have, like Quentin Bryce said, you can have it all, not all at once.
Yeah,
So
right, right.
how has that affected your career, do you think?
On a good day, and I hope most of them are good days. It is better to have lived a life. It is better to have raised men that I'm proud to know. It is better to have had a marriage where being equals was absolutely essential to staying together. All of those are more important than any career opportunity you might have taken up. You
Yeah.
could, yes, in theory, have saved up money, moved over to New York, which is where all the musicals get written. That's the
Yeah.
the brass ring that a lot of Australian writers go for. But you don't know what happens over there. You could disappear. You could become disillusioned. You could write a lot of terrible, violent children musicals.
I was about to say your
You
martial
don't
arts
know.
musical might have been like either really highly praised or like, just canned. Like you'll never know. Yeah.
Well, look, people don't want to hear the truth, Tatiana. I mean, if you're going to lay down some lyrics like that, but it's always the rosy version that people are convinced would have occurred had they gone the other
Yeah,
way. They
that's true.
never
That's true.
say, I wish I could have gone overseas and become obscure and bitter. It's never that. It's never that.
I
And
can do that in my own house. Like I don't
yeah,
need to pay the airfare. Like yeah.
and I think it's a cop out too if you say, because there's any number of artists who have produced work while they were raising kids or have produced work while they were trying to be a good partner to their spouse. And they've just had to do it in the times that are available to do it in. That doesn't change, I think, if you're doing it full time. So I'm now in this curious position where, because both of my boys are in their 20s and because I now fuss over them like a dad but don't need to, they're fine.
Yeah.
There is more time. There is more time to do more writing. And so the only thing that's between me and doing these things that I've been describing to you, which is trying not to sound like an AI musical, trying to sound like something that's funky and new and interesting and has something interesting to say and is not going to run for 20 years and is not going to play to 1,500 seats. The only thing that's between me and writing that is me. So get on it and do
Yeah.
that thing and do it like 5 minutes at a time. Do it 10 minutes at a time. Do it. Don't do that, that Disney romantic version. Have you ever seen there's a biopic of Beethoven that Disney made? I think it dates from
No.
the 60s. And he's writing the Pastoral Symphony like in the storm. So the storm breaks in the real world, and he's writing it on the music. Yeah, yeah, das ist gut. And I don't know that he would have actually said that
That
because
just
his
sounds
hearing
that
had
just
gone.
sound
So
like
he probably
porn then. Like I don't know what was going on there. But anyway, yeah. What the fuck?
and
But
the
yeah.
raindrops are landing on the manuscript and they're blurring the notes, and that is such bullshit. Like it's not even good bullshit. It's just bullshit.
Oh, have
Like
you
he
seen
would
those
have,
memes with
yeah.
like black dudes in a car in like wherever? It's so funny. Or not memes, but like videos on like, I don't know. I think my kids call them reels. I don't know. They're on your TikToks. I don't fucking know. But anyway, they have like, they pretend that like Beethoven has just dropped the fucking, like the most banging
Oh
tune
no,
and then they
those are
play a
brilliant.
symphony.
Those
So
are
good.
fantastic,
And
and they're like.
they're like, I can't believe he's done it. Whoa. Who did he
Da-da-da-da.
collaborate with? Yeah.
Da-da-da-da. He went there. He
Yes.
went there. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's absolutely fantastic. And the process of creation is overwhelmingly tedious and dull. There's a reason you don't see the songwriting sessions. You see the vocalist doing the vocal take. So, with the
Oh,
cans with the
yeah.
one ear off. And they're like,
Yeah.
you God make me feel but you don't see sitting there with the diary and going,
Going, what
you
rhymes with
feel.
feel?
Yeah,
Steel.
because
Yeah.
my lyrics are and crossed out, but crossed out, and crossed out, but crossed out. And do I want it to be and or but? Ah, like it's really tedious. It's
Oh,
very, very boring to watch. And then later on, hopefully when someone's singing the song, that's a thing that's actually worth listening to and hearing. So it is very kind of anybody to say, as you were pointing out, dudes should be asked more often, how do you balance family life and work?
yeah.
And
Yep.
the answer should be, look, I do my best and some days I don't.
Mm.
But I think that if you're an artist and if you're pursuing stuff that is an artistic pursuit, it's not all or nothing. It's not you're Picasso or you're a drone in an office. It is quite
Yeah, okay.
possible, I think, and a vast majority of artists are. I think they are teachers and they are nurses and they are Uber drivers and they are a range of professions while they pursue their artistic practice. And if it's the kind of practice that does not, for most practitioners, produce a living wage, all the more reason to do that stuff. And all the more reason, I think, to encounter human beings in a normal setting and find out what their days are about.
Mm.
One of the things that I encounter in human beings in a normal setting and what they're all about is how dreadfully we've marketed musicals to them so that all they expect is Moulin Rouge.
Even I know that's not indicative of what it can be.
I'm
Yeah.
not shitting on Moulin Rouge because Moulin Rouge, I hope, does really well and keeps lots of people employed. But it's not for me. It's not for me. And if the art form is painted into that corner, it starts to sound like pop music sounds, which is we've all agreed that there are 5 topics for the songs. We've all agreed that there are 6 sounds for the vocalist. And we've all agreed that when we get accused of plagiarism, we can shrug and go, actually, it's more surprising when we don't plagiarize each other because we are working in such like the confines
Yeah.
are ridiculous. Yeah. If my song sounds like someone else's that was a massive hit 10 minutes ago, thanks. That's what I was going for. Plagiarism, not so much. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And look, this is the thing. I know your kids are just a little older than mine, but now that we've got older kids, we've done
Yeah.
the kind of real hard, grafty bits of parenting, right? So I'm just going to put you on the spot. So now that you do have maybe more scope to do perhaps what you like a project that you've been sitting on or, like what is next for you? What would you like to get out there?
There's a cabaret show that I'm writing with my partner, Carissa, and I should say that we started writing together back in the 90s. Like that was one of the first things we worked on together was a cabaret show that I was writing, and she was the co-writer and the director. So she was the person who sat up front and said things like, that was good, don't do that. And I said things like, ow, my feelings are hurt. And I hope, these days better at hearing that was good, don't do that, and going, thanks. Good to have the point of view from out front. Hard to hear, but good to hear. And So there's a cabaret show that we're working on, which is about all of the great men of literature, all of the Darcys and the Rochesters and the Heathcliffs.
You utter hot nerd. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is kind of a hot, and it's the kind of show that we would really want to go on in a library or at a writers' festival or in a community hall, but not in a big theatre. It wouldn't feel a big theatre, but also that it would always be a little bit niche, that it would always be a little bit hot nerdy. Like I would like it to be the kind of show that folks who dig these books, but also want to meet other people who dig these books, but also dig the film adaptations and the TV adaptations, would go and hear a song about Darcy and look at each other and go, hey, there was that very obscure reference in the lyrics just there. So yes, that's extremely nerdy. I'm dead keen to write something that is of an unusual form. I would love to write a show that is kind of interlocking and takes place over maybe 2 nights and exists in a way that we probably associate with big grand operas, but isn't as forbidding as that. I don't have much, and I really like the idea of doing shows for youthful performers that aren't set in high school, because there's a lot of those, and I think it would be really nice to have
Where's the
young
middle-aged
people.
crisis? I'm in the perimenopause, Peach. Where's my
The
musical?
perimenopause
Where
musical.
is it? Where is it?
If there was a perimenopause musical, it would just be fuck for like 90 minutes.
So
And then
true,
at the
so
end, a guy would go, "Do you like what is wrong with you? Can't you calm down?" And then they'd get killed. So I'm really interested in doing stuff that isn't the cookie cutter Broadway model. And I say that as if that's easy to write, and it's not. And I say that as if that's easy to get on stage, and it's not. It costs millions of dollars. But it is, I think, stultifying for the art form. It is the Marvel movie of cinema. There's other cinema. And it's possible for one person to enjoy both. It is possible for one person to, as I did, I remember I saw Minari at the cinema and I cried over this family and their farm and the music. And then I went home and watched Is It Cake? And I thought, you can be enjoying Minari and enjoying Is It Cake. You're just, human beings have a lot to them. So I love the idea of doing a show that maybe is unconventional, but doing all the things that you want a show to do.
Peter J, before I let you go, and I'm very fond of you, I'm just going to be very self-indulgent because I'm pretty sure you'll let me. So when we talk about AI and just how fucking soulless it is and taking away, and the immediacy of cabaret and all the things we've talked about, I have a lovely friend. Her name's Jen. She was a big Bowie fan. I've got my little guide to David Bowie. And I just want to do a shout out to her so that it just goes out into the ether. I heard that she passed away today. She lived in London.
Sorry.
She was plagued. Yeah, she was plagued by lots of awful cancers. And what I loved about her is she was one of those people that, I hate this terminology too when people say lost their battle with cancer, because I think
I know
implies
that
it's a fight that you can fucking win. And it's like, no, you're at the mercy of whatever medical care you can afford or that you have available. Like, it's a shitty thing that you go through. And, whether you're brave, happy, sad or whatever, it's just a crap thing. And I'm putting her into the mix because she was a massive Bowie fan. And whilst she was plagued with all of these cancers, she wrote an album, she wrote a book. And I know that you and I in London. And I remember I thought of you because I thought we never covered Bowie in the Vinyl Monologues because you knew that I knew his discography too well. But I just thought I'd do a shout out for Jen because she lived an amazing life and was only in her 30s. And anyway, I thought just to do a shout out for this beautiful woman who lost her life today. I just wanted to do that, and I thought you'd let me because you're such a great guy. So,
yeah. Thank you, Jen. Going to have to look up her stuff now.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. She just randomly wrote an album and a book. And what I love is she was so fucking cool. She's like, it's not going to be autobiographical, even though she had the most touching, vulnerable blog about her cancer journey. She was just like, fuck that. She just called it Rebel. And it was a really cool story about like rock fans. Like, it was just awesome. So anyway, shout out to her. So yeah. But Peter J, absolute pleasure. And look, I can't let you go without asking, is there an album that I still need to listen to that you never got me to to do.
When we were doing, let's see.
Yeah, there's got
Do
to
we
be
do
one
that's
that
come out?
wasn't suggested. Yeah, maybe I need to
Do we
leave it
do
with
one
you. I
that's
don't
come
know,
out
but
subsequently, or yeah?
yes, is there something I need to listen to? Because you did turn me on to some new stuff.
Look, I'll come round to your house and play it on a boombox over my head. I'll surprise you.
Oh, bless. Peter J, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the Vinyl Monologues again.
Thanks, Tatjana.
The Vinyl Monologues is hosted by the ever-opinionated, only in the best way, Tatjana Clancy, and produced by the button-pushing, camera-pointing, lights-moving sound guy, Paul Bissett. That's me. Massive props to long-term friend and collaborator Peter J. Casey for not only his colossal knowledge of musicals, but also for his disarming, hilarious presence and never-ending arsenal of unusual music facts. A million thanks go to Sia Ahmad for our fantastic theme music. It takes a special person to totally nail the vague brief of, please make a tune that sort of sounds like a hidden Joy Division New Order B-side, so please do check out the rest of Sia's stuff. The Vinyl Monologues is a Magenius production, recorded and produced on the unceded lands of the Ngunnawal people. Visit magenius.com to see what else those crazy guys are up to. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review because we want to know what you think. Email us at thevmpod@gmail.com or just go to vinylmonologues.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be back before you know it.